So last time I talked about our sponsor, Third Love, I went on and on about how great their classic t-shirt bra was. And it is, so I'm gonna say it again. It is the best bra I've ever owned. My husband actually said this week, "There's a bra in the garbage. Is it supposed to be here?" And I said, yes. My Third Love bras are so much better than that horrible thing. I actually said that. Those were words I actually said. Did you know your bra size can change 6 times in your lifetime? Did you know that 80% of women are wearing the wrong size bra? Third Love makes it easy to find the bra that actually fits with their fitting room quiz. The fitting room quiz is like a personal shopper that focuses on size, shape, current fit issues, so you can find bras that are perfect for you. They even have half cup sizes. Half cup sizes. I mean, that feels so obvious, and yet it's exclusive to Third Love. Third Love's fitting room has helped over 18 million women find their true bra size, and I bet a bunch of them put their old bras in the garbage too. Plus, with Third Love's Perfect Fit promise, you're guaranteed to love your fit. If you don't, exchanges and returns are free for 60 days. But feeling is believing. Give your boobs, or some boobs you know, the 24/7 comfort and support they deserve. Upgrade your bras today and get 20% off your first order at thirdlove.com/politicsgirl. That's 20% off at thirdlove.com/politicsgirl.
You know what? You know how the Mandalorian never takes off his mask?
I know.
That should actually be like, someone should do some sort of promo, be like the Mandalorian.
This is the way.
Never take off the mask. Yeah. Anyway,
this is the way.
Anyways.
Hello, and welcome to the PoliticsGirl Podcast. I'm your host, Lee McGowan. Let's get into it. This week's episode is a candid conversation with American epidemiologist and health economist, Dr. Eric Feigl-Ding. Now, I don't normally do PGCCs back to back, but when something is topical and complicated, I've discovered sometimes the best way to explain it isn't to explain it at all, but to ask. We have experts for a reason. And although far-right pundits and media personalities like to pretend they're experts in everything from critical race theory to foreign relations to virology, I want us to be more comfortable knowing what we don't know and being curious and humble enough to seek answers from those who do. Whether we do that through research, which is how I do most of my pods, or we do it through conversations with people who, unlike myself, truly are experts. The goal is for you to leave this pod knowing more than you did before and feeling as if our time together was well spent. Knowledge really is power, and the more we understand, the better prepared we are to make the most informed decisions for ourselves and our families. Dr. Eric Feigl-Ding was a former faculty member and researcher at Harvard Medical School and the Harvard Chan School of Public Health. A senior fellow at the Federation of American Scientists in Washington, D.C., and chief health economist for the Microclinic International, Dr. Feigl-Ding's work focuses on the intersection of public health and public policy. But, most importantly for today's conversation, he was recognized in the media as one of the first to alert the U.S. public to the pandemic risk of COVID-19 back in January 2020. In fact, throughout the pandemic, Dr. Feigl-Ding has been ahead of the curve as far as what was really happening with COVID rather than what we wanted to be happening. And as someone with a serious chronic illness myself, his honesty and ability to give it to you straight is one of the reasons he's one of my go-to follows for pandemic information. A graduate of Johns Hopkins University with a PhD in epidemiology from Harvard and an MD from BU, Dr. Feigl-Ding clearly has the resume to be an expert, but it's his ability to message on social media that sets him apart. Dr. Feigl-Ding has used social media as a way to reach out to people about public health for years. A major advocate for cancer prevention, he formed one of the biggest Facebook groups, 6 million members, to bring attention to that cause. He created a social network and public alert system for drinking water contamination in the aftermath of the Flint water crisis. And he led a team to co-develop the first mobile contacting application for infectious disease outbreaks during the Ebola crisis. Unfortunately, that project was shelved due to lack of interest in pandemic preparedness. I know, but his application contributions live on to inform the later designs of contact tracing apps developed during the COVID outbreak. I know we all want COVID to be over, but COVID doesn't care about what we want. So I wanted to talk to my go-to guy, Dr. Feigl-Ding, about what we should be expecting as BA2 comes to America, how we should be handling this next phase of the pandemic, and what we can do to prepare for moving forward. So without further ado, please welcome Dr. Eric Feigl-Ding, epidemiologist, economist, social media superstar, and voracious teller of the truth. Welcome, Eric.
Thank you so much.
Now, I've been following you since your Holy Mother of God tweet in January 2020, when you told people COVID was going to be bad. Now, I thought it was going to be bad too, because as someone with a rare lung disease, I'd been watching the news extremely carefully. And I started canceling in-person things at the end of January 2020, and people thought I was being weird and alarmist. And then when the virus jumped from Wuhan to Italy, I pulled my son out of school and people thought I had gone crazy. But then 2 weeks later, all the schools ended up shutting down and we all went to Zoom. I think the thing is that I had already lived through a coronavirus. I developed a coronavirus in 2018. It was not this coronavirus, but I had developed one. It had become pneumonia in my body, and I spent 6 months in and out of the hospital. So I knew what it was like to gasp for breath, to need oxygen, to live in a hospital. So when they said another coronavirus was coming, I took it seriously very fast because I had lived through it. But most people don't have that point of view. So I knew that this version that was coming would definitely kill me. So we locked our family down hard. But you also saw what was coming at that level. You got it. Now, can you tell me what made you sound the alarm when no one else was yet doing it?
Yeah, thanks for having me. Those were crazy days. January 2020, I would say it's epidemiologists. You're kind of like a kind of shoe leather disease detective, right? And, we just have to read the tea leaves. You don't have all the data in the world to prove your thesis. This is early. But things are tea leaves, it's like if you flip a coin 5 times and they're all heads, and you flip it 10, they're all heads, there's something strange going on. And all the signals were basically leaning in the really, really bad direction. And so we were like, this is bad. This is bad. But, as a scientist, you don't want to scare people just based on anecdotes. But when the first, R naught paper of how contagious it is, the reproductive number came out, I was like, 3.8, that's, oh my God, Holy Mother of God, that's really bad considering how A, dense China's population is, and B, that there's signs of asymptomatic infection, and that, we have international travel now that can literally take this anywhere around the globe. This is something I have to really blow the whistle on because people don't really understand. Like, you have to act fast. And if you don't act fast, you're going to get behind. And ever since then, we've always been behind the game. We've always been reactive instead of proactive. And, I've also relatives in China. I have, just ears to the ground of many scientists in China. Like, I was hearing stuff that mainstream scientists here weren't really listening to because they don't have that ear to the ground and pipeline. So altogether, the data was bad. And, from my personal experience, having survived a childhood tumor and, as a previous whistleblower against other pharma, I know that we have to act quickly. I don't want this to really blow up. And in certain ways, I wasn't chasing a tenure track or a full professorship kind of job anymore.
Where you have to be really careful. You can say what you want to say.
Yeah, other scientists have to be really careful because, God, if they say something wrong, oh my God, I'm going to lose tenure. I'm never getting my promotion. People are going to fire me. No, I really have nothing to lose, right? So I just said, you know what? Of all the people who are out there, I just went for it.
Yeah, that's how I do it here, right? I can say what I want to say too, because some network doesn't pay me and they say, well, actually we have an advertiser that says that. So you can't say that this company did this. I don't have that particular situation. So I'm allowed to say what's actually going on. And sometimes I think people are starving for that. That's one of the reasons I've always followed you, because you'll tell me what's up without telling me what's up through the lens of some corporation or some government. And I think the thing is, when we talk about government and how we handled it from the beginning and how we were behind the 8 ball from the beginning, you can't ignore the fact of who our leadership was when this began. And, we've now been through a lot as a country. I mean, the way this virus unfolded in America is heartbreaking because, like you said, we were always behind the 8 ball. There's just this huge amount of suffering, of loss of life, of loss of businesses, of loss of relationships. And those are all terrible, but it was also the way this virus divided us, because viruses by nature are not political, right? If anything, they are the most apolitical thing in the world. They don't care who we are. They don't care where we vote. They don't care what color our skin is. Their job is to get into our body and multiply as fast as possible and that's their gig. So if anything, it should have been so easy for us to be Team America versus Team Virus. And somehow the leadership we had ended up politicizing it. So it became sort of Team Science versus Team Virus, or Team Freedom, or Team Ignore Reality. I don't know what that other team should be called, but
Team Mass Infection on the other side.
I know, Team Mass Infection, just team take us all out if we want us to. But I think if the previous administration had been from the very beginning, like, this is serious, we'd like you all to wear masks, we're sending masks to your home, that kind of an idea, or had taken the virus seriously, or we'd seen leadership wearing masks and they weren't suggesting, idiotic cures that they were coming up with off the top of their head, or using it as a cudgel to divide us. But as angry as I am at the previous administration for its leadership that led to sort of division and ignorance about science, I find that I am more cross with the CDC, because the CDC was someone that I could really look to and the world really looked to say, like, what are we supposed to do here? Because they're apolitical. They're supposed to be science first. So, right. And I found that they've made all these decisions that aren't science first. What do you think
in
about
the last
that?
Administration, obviously the CDC was muzzled in many ways. Like, they try to muzzle their, the MMWR, weekly reports. They try to, basically gaslight and just try to fire or completely silence scientists. But I didn't expect that during this administration, because I'm a Democrat. I've advocated for Biden administration very well. But I think, and Biden's been mostly hands off the CDC, right? But the CDC itself is, its leadership has been so behind in terms of airborne. Oh, we don't know it's airborne. Oh my God. Scientists have been saying it's airborne since like early 2020, but they didn't really recognize it until like 2021. And again, if you recognize it, N95 masks, where are they? We have them widely available. You can get them very easily. So why haven't you mandated them? Like, hospitals still are not required to use N95 masks. And now, like cross infection, basically you go to the hospital negative, but then you acquire COVID in the hospital. That's surged. It used to be like 4% in New York of all the hospitalizations are cross infection, but now it's like 20. It's basically we've completely been derelict at the CDC. The fact that they still don't require N95 masks in hospitals is just abominable. And of course, right now they changed the guidelines from all red to, hey, the next day, our new community levels is like mostly green. And they did that by basically saying, well, we're going to ignore positivity cases. We're going to replace it with hospitalizations. Except, the problem is, in public health, it's not like we don't need to wear helmets. Oh, because the hospital beds are not full. Oh, drunk driving is okay right now because the hospital beds are not full. In public health, that's not in any way, a shape or form. Like smoking and all these things. Oh, we have all these smoking regulations, trans fat bans, bike and motorcycle helmets, and drunk driving laws. Even if a hospital beds are not full, because we care about prevention. And I think CDC's completely forgotten to P the prevention in its name. And right now it's just basically, they have this, and what I think is basically come what may, unless it's hospitalizations, we don't care. And that is just so dangerous and derelict.
Well, I think it's tough too for the government we have right now. And I'm a big supporter of the Biden government too, because you're in this position where a third of the country refused to do it anyway, right? They just straight up refuse to do the vaccines. They're going to protest the mandates. They won't wear the masks. You have Americans screaming at each other in Bed Bath & Beyonds about someone wearing a mask. It became this political football for them to throw at each other or hammer Biden with. And the thing is that I wonder, even as someone who's very sick, and I wear an N95 anywhere I'm out in public. My son, they just removed the masks mandates from his school. He still wears a mask because he lives with a person who is chronically ill. Luckily, he goes to a school in which most of his friends are lovely about it. There are always the kids that are like, why are you wearing a mask? And, but I think we've even got to the point now where people just don't trust science. And what do you do if you don't trust science? Because it leaves us in a position where if if the government could just defer to the CDC and say, they say this, so we have to do that. But if the CDC keeps changing their mind and we already don't trust science and we feel hesitant about it, what do we do? How do we move forward? Because we must trust science.
This is the painful part because, science is supposed to be like what drives policy. And you can say that, in the Trump administration, you ignored it, but you can't ignore it now. But it's like almost like it's inconvenient to follow all the science around COVID. And now for expediency, whether it's economic reasons, whether it's Delta Airlines arm twisting, hey, 5 days is all you need. You don't need to test anymore. That's all you need. Even though, most other countries have a much longer isolation. And if they have shortened it, you have to test out of it. But CDC does neither. And of course, we saw a lot of airline lobbying around that. It's just, and of course, there's really bad actors too. There's DeSantis is his stoogie Surgeon General,
his Surgeon General,
shall not be named, who just completely says anti-science things and completely cherry picks everything. But they have the veneer, it's scientific. So now it's all being muddied. It's like climate change. Oh well, there's some climate science who they're just still open for debate. Wow, come on. It's like 99.9% of all scientists agree that there is climate change. It's just the right wing cherry picks that one scientist and gives them a platform to muddy the waters. And, that's what the cigarette companies used to do. We don't know if cigarettes really cause cancer. There's still speculation. The gaslighting has been happening for a long time. This corporate influence and also political influence trying to, water down whether it's climate science or some inconvenient science. It's happening all the time. But right now, the fact that it's really endangering massive numbers of people and hurting us economically is just unfathomable. You go into public health. By the way, it's the career. Instead of medicine, you go into public health to study more degrees, earn more student loans, so you're eligible to come out earning less money. That's what public health is.
And then you have your PhD, and everyone says you're not a real doctor. Yeah,
I got it. But the thing is, this is the one thing, we care about, and now it's completely just blown up that, okay, we don't care about public health anymore because I don't know, economics more.
Yeah, no, I mean, health? Listen, it's economics.
Why do we even spend so much money in healthcare? Trying to protect people.
Well, I hope we'll continue to do that. I have to tell you, I would like to be protected. I mean, let's talk about protection. There is an entire group of people who are out here right now saying, we all know, we can see the science now, masks never worked, right? Now, you and I both know that masks are not all created equal, but the concept of them not working at all, no matter what the official line of the government is, mask mandate, mask not mandate. Let me just ask you, do masks work?
Yes, they do. Cloth masks semi-work.
Okay.
N95 masks work much, much better. And of course, P100 elastomeric masks work even better. And
what's
of
a
course,
P100? I want that. That sounds very fancy. I want that.
Yeah. Those are the things that, it's on the sides. They look like gas masks. My husband's always trying to pitch me on
those. I'm like, oh, I look like I have Ebola.
Just search P100. Those are the next level up from the N95. You can get them. But they do work. And also the fact with cloth masks, we always said it works best when everyone does it, because cloth masks are best at catching your spray as opposed to, inhalation. But if everyone wears it, then of course everyone catches their own spray. But not everyone does it. And if not everyone does it, it's not that great. And similarly, hence you need to double mask or wear the premium mask. But that gets lost. And also, they say the same thing with vaccines. Oh, vaccines don't work. So in public health, everything is always reducing the probability of getting infected, right? Even the best cancer drugs in the world reduce your likelihood of getting cancer or likelihood of dying from cancer. It's not like there is almost no magic silver bullet for anything. But when we say, masks help prevent COVID or vaccines prevent COVID, people think prevent means 100% magical wonder pill and there's therefore no breakthroughs or whatsoever. But that's not what prevent means. Prevent means you lower the risk. But then the other side muddies it. Oh, the quote I heard some mom say at a school board meeting, if masks work, then why don't they? Well, yeah, they work to reduce it. Just because I can name someone who, smoked a pack of cigarettes and died at 100. And those people will say, well, if cigarettes kill you, then why doesn't you? But, those are clearly cherry picking kind of things. Don't smoke, kids, please.
All right. Don't smoke. I'm telling you, as someone with broken lungs, do not mess them up if you got healthy ones. So listen, we do this one element of the show where we take a break from all things politics, in this case, all things health. So listen, you're in this global health crisis. You know everything that's going on in the world. What's your escape? What's the thing you do that has nothing to do with health or politics or policy? Like what's your I'm getting away from it all? Do you have anything? Because I sometimes am like, I got nothing.
I go skiing sometimes. Ooh. I'm a pretty good skier. I watch Star Trek.
Oh, which one?
Discovery and Picard.
Okay.
I've been going through them pretty hard. The Mandalorian. I actually just changed out of my Mandalorian t-shirt just for you.
I could have brought a Mandalorian helmet to this entire interview. We've got multiple Mandalorian helmets.
You know what? You know how the Mandalorian never takes off his mask?
I know.
That should actually be like, someone should do some sort of promo, be like the Mandalorian.
This is the way.
Never take off the mask. Yeah. Anyway,
this is the way.
Anyways.
And, look, Eric.
Oh.
This is the way. We wear our masks, you guys. This is the way.
Yeah, that's awesome. You have a Mandalorian helmet right there.
This is my life.
We didn't plan this at all. That's amazing. I want one now.
This is my life. This is my life. We'll be back right after this. This week's pod is sponsored by my pals at Blinkist. Blinkist is a book summarizing subscription service that allows you to read or listen to the key insights from best-selling nonfiction books in around 15 minutes. This week, someone said to me that my work is a lot like Bill Bryson, and I was like, thank you. Who's that? And the person was like, oh, Lee. And I said, don't oh Lee me, I don't have any time to read. But I felt like a dum-dum. So later I went home and went on Blinkist, and sure enough, there he was. The man's written a ton of books, but it seems the one he's best known for is A Short History of Almost Everything, which in itself is a summary. A Short History of Almost Everything is like a breakdown of contemporary scientific thinking relating to all aspects of life, from the creation of the universe to our relationship with the teeniest, tiniest bacteria. The book itself is huge, but the Blinkist version is only 38 minutes long. You want to brush up on your foundational knowledge of the universe like the Big Bang Theory or Newton's laws or particle theory? 38 minutes later, there you go. Blinkist not only summarizes books in audio form, but they also give you a text summary in which you can highlight and build notes right on your phone to follow up with later. And when you're listening, they say things like, hey, here's the key message from this chapter, here's the takeaway, which is incredibly helpful when you're talking about stuff like the theory of relativity. I love this app. Blinkist has over 5,000 audio titles. They populate your account with books and episodes that they think you might like, or you can just go looking for them like I do. And right now, Blinkist has a special offer just for our audience. Go to Blinkist.com/PoliticsGirl to start your 7-day free trial and get 25% off a Blinkist premium membership. That's Blinkist, spelled Blinkist. Blinkist.com/PoliticsGirl to get 25% off and a 7-day free trial. Blinkist.com/PoliticsGirl. I'm so happy to have it. And to that person, I know who Bill Bryson is now. So there. My family has been using Athletic Greens literally every day for 4 months. I've got my friends hooked, my family hooked, and now I want you hooked. Here's the thing. I don't make anything if you buy it. I want you to buy it because I know it'll make you feel better. And if you're someone who bothers to listen to my show, you're someone who really deserves to feel better. This stuff is no joke. With 1 scoop of Athletic Greens and water on an empty stomach, you are absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day off right. Its special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, and aging. All the things. It's a once-a-day microhabit that uses the best products and is based in the latest science. I say it all the time, but their current formula is on its 53rd iteration because they're constantly updating it as the science is advancing. No matter how you eat, paleo, vegan, dairy-free, gluten-free, it'll fit into your lifestyle. It has less than 1 gram of sugar per serving, no GMOs, no chemicals, no artificial anything. So give it a try. Right now is the perfect time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with a convenient daily nutrition, especially as everyone takes off their masks and gives each other, if not COVID, then colds. Stay healthy without a million different pills and supplements. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you 1 free year of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/politicsgirl. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/politicsgirl to take ownership over your health and get the ultimate in daily nutritional insurance. I know you won't be disappointed. As of this taping, the White House press secretary, the vice president's husband, former President Obama, Hillary Clinton, and 10 U.S. Democrats have all tested positive for COVID. And that's in less than 2 weeks. Now, I know people are dying to get back to normal. Like, I understand that. But it doesn't seem like COVID is over. So what's going on?
So what's going on is that vaccines and boosters work, but they work mostly against hospitalization. Again, they reduce transmission if you're boosted against Omicron. Now, last year, again, when we had these older variants, our vaccines, which are, again, Wuhan spike protein vaccines, they worked really well. But Omicron,
okay, hold on for a second.
So
when you say Wuhan spike protein vaccines, you're talking about from the original alpha virus.
The original 1.0.
Okay. And then the little guys that come off, our original vaccines are making sure that those spike proteins can't do their job, right? So then they can't multiply in your body as well.
Yes, the spike protein is like the key that opens the lock into your cell.
Okay.
And we taught our bodies to learn, oh, this is the spike. If you see this stranger, attack it next time. It's a virus training program. That's what vaccines are.
Right.
But we're training it on the original Wuhan 1.0 virus, not Delta, and definitely not Omicron, and definitely not BA2.
BA2 is a form of Omicron, right? It's sort of an Omicron
BA2,
variation.
well, I think it should be given a separate name, but it's a subtype of Omicron that's now surging worldwide and causing a lot of problems in Asia as well as in Europe. Hospitalizations are rising there. It's really bad. And US, we're at 30% BA2, but it's climbing a lot every week. It's going to get to that point. So right now, BA2 is so different than the original that it's basically, it has greater penetration against our vaccines. With 2 shots, it protects against hospitalization 75%, which is good but not great. But against infection, it's very low. It's in the teens and 20s and 30s. It's really low. And that's why you need boosters.
Okay, so you can still get it, but you won't end up in the hospital.
Yeah, but with boosters, if you're a fresh booster, within 10 weeks, you're like 70%. But after 10 weeks, it's like 45% protection against symptomatic infection. So think of it this way. Look, if your body is like this bridge, a 4-lane highway bridge, your bridge is not going to collapse. The booster protects you 95% against the bridge collapse, right?
Okay.
But the problem is you've slowed the transmission, but you've only closed 2 lanes out of a 4-lane highway.
Okay.
So what's the chance that you'll get a virus? It's lower, but you've only closed 2 out of 4 lanes. But you know that a virus can still pass through. What we know is that, you have 2 viruses. It's either more severe, but not more contagious, or more contagious and less severe. Which of these 2 will ultimately, if you let it spread in the population, kill more people?
Right.
It's the less severe, more contagious virus. Because you let it spread more and more, you balloon the denominator of total people infected, and ultimately that will send more people to the hospital and die. And so this is why the problem with our messaging on focus on, you're protected against hospitalization, don't worry about it, is that it's actually condoning unfettered spread, right? And the other thing is, if you tell someone that, you're boosted, you're fine. It's almost like the flu. It is technically like the flu and hospitalization, but don't forget long COVID. It's really bad. I think we're going to really see a lot of suffering of symptoms in terms of organ damage. There's new evidence that COVID causes diabetes, exacerbates diabetes as well. And of course, there's memory cognitive fatigue. But even aside from long COVID and all the long-term costs, you're actually allowing it to spread even more. And the other thing is, if I tell you that, hey, you're not going to get hospitalized, you're not going to die, what are you going to do? You're going to start going out to nightclubs, dinner parties, restaurants and bars. And basically, you're going to be really, really cavalier about everything again. And that will allow you to spread even more. Think about it. Like if you close a 4-lane highway down to 2 lanes, yes, you reduce your risk by 50%. But then you go out 10x more and spread it to 10x more people. You've actually increased the total number of infections and therefore total number of people that will get sick. And this is why you're fine, it's just the flu, you won't get hospitalized or die message is really, really dangerous. Because, in terms of CDC, by the way, this is what's crazy. They listed on a website, high risk factors. It's like 25 different illnesses, from diabetes to obesity to a whole slew of different diseases. That's like over 2/3 of America.
I was going to say, yeah.
And it's crazy long. And at the bottom is like, well, if you have high risk factors, you should be careful and consult your doctor. Okay. So basically, if you're not high risk, don't worry about it. Hey, it's party time again, like it's 2019. But if you're high risk, go consult your doctor. But now we're going to reopen everything. Like, how is that socially responsible in any way? And again, it's the spreading. By the way, the same thing happened when HIV drug cocktails came out.
Right.
HIV during the 80s and early 90s, it was really scary, right?
It was really
a lot of people
scary.
were dying.
I remember it well.
And then the cocktails came out. And of course, hey, the cocktails makes it just like a chronic illness. You won't die. You won't die anymore most of the time. And so don't worry about it. And actually, people became more promiscuous after the HIV cocktails came out.
Yeah. And
it's just like these boosters. It's not that the boosters don't work. It's that these people now feel they can be more promiscuous with their virus spreading, right? And partying and just feeling invulnerable, that basically they end up endangering more people. And what happens, of course, is the people on the Upper East Side, Upper West Side in Manhattan, they're fine. They are wealthy. They have a stack of Binax Now tests this high for all their parties. They have HEPA filters at home. They have HEPA filters at work. Most of them can work remotely, and they can have the doctors that get them Paxlovid, the limited supply that there is. Right now, the U.S. is running short monoclonal antibody. They can get anything that they want. But most Americans who don't have enough health care can't get like a stack of Binax Now tests this high. They can't get all these drugs, fancy drugs, and they can't afford HEPA filters at school, work, or workplace or home. And of course, they're much more high risk because they're poor. And of course, what happens is that the rich can go brunching again and feel cavalier, while the poor people in America still continue.
Well, you know what? This whole thing reminds me a little bit of Batman. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm going to tell you why, so that doesn't sound so random to you. But it's like the vaccine and then the booster is like you're wearing a bulletproof vest. You can still get shot, but you won't die. We're walking around as if we're Batman, like we're totally invincible. We're wearing a full Kevlar suit. We have the whole thing. And that's not actually how protected we are. Now, the very rich might be almost invincible with their multiple tests and their access to drugs and their ability to test everyone that walks in their front door. They are ultra protected. But the rest of us who live in the real world, we get our booster, we get our vaccine, we're wearing a bulletproof vest. It does not make us invincible. It makes us more protected and less likely to die. And I think if we look at it like that, we can look at masks like one other layer of a bulletproof vest against what's coming out. And if we're with groups of people, then we want to just be more aware and be more careful, because what happens is people think, like you said, that they're free to go about their business and everything is gone. And you can't just go from having a pandemic to not having a pandemic. And I have to say, like, even as a sick person, like, I was devastated when they removed the mask mandates, because it's just harder. It's so much harder for our family. And yet, politically, I can conceptually understand how they got to that point. Like intellectually, I can understand that because people are tired. You have this trucker convoy going on and they're holding up the basic economy against mandates that we currently don't even have. Our people are fighting. They're jockeying for political position, and the other party will be worse for the virus, right? So I get concerned that we're going to beat up on the Democrats and say, you let this bill go through without more funding for COVID. You did this. We're going to vote for the Republicans. And I think, oh God, don't do that. That'll be worse. I mean, you saw what happened when they were in leadership. They just let us die indiscriminately. And they were like, it'll go away like a miracle. Don't wear a mask. So I feel like we have to be very careful politically to both protect ourselves personally, be aware of how protected we really are if we are vaccinated, if we are boosted, and if we wear a mask, but also try on some level to support the one party who actually will get something passed if we say have another big influx of Omicron come through here. That's a different version, another wave. Then Nancy Pelosi said she'll do a standalone bill for COVID. The Republican Party would not do that, right? They represent the very wealthy. They represent those people you were talking about in New York, and those people will be fine. And they think we've done enough. I mean, they've come out and said we've done enough. Congress has done enough. The Democrats want more. They can't get it right now. Politically, I can kind of understand that. And I don't want to rag on the Democrats too much because the alternative is worse.
Yeah, politically, I get why, they feel like, for example, we lost the Virginia race because of too much of mask fear politics. But, what people have to realize is that if you want your freedom sooner and more freedom, it's better to actually take more precautions. And, when cases are down, instead of just giving up halfway, which America's always done. We've always given up at a plateau. We've never given up at a low level. And politically, I think it's a bigger win than when we actually can declare, freedom from COVID or basically freedom from any of these stupid variants. It's always going to be surging again. But of course, right now, Republicans are just saying, they keep on the vaccine misinformation, the mask misinformation, and use a mask as a wedge, vaccine as a wedge.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's working for them because people are tired. Everyone is tired.
Everyone is tired.
Yeah, but it's one of those inconvenient things, like just like climate change. Mother Nature doesn't give a damn about your politics, right? It will do what it is doing. And right now, if you're feeding more greenhouse gases at an epic scale without going to green energy and renewable energy, of course, this is going to keep going. It's not some magical thing. And I think, of course, the ostrich head in the sand phase hopefully is going to be over soon with climate change. But, we've lost so much time. Hopefully, people are going to wake up again that, this COVID is over craze is going to hit them really, really hard in the next 2-3 months. And people are going to wake up that says, all this whack-a-mole that we've been doing is hurting us. If we want freedom sooner, then we need to get aggressive about it and stop fighting each other. But of course, that's politics. And that's what is so disgusting about this. We haven't had a pandemic of this sort in over 100 years.
Yeah.
Right? And it had to happen right now in the age of social media. God, if the pandemic hit before the advent of Facebook, honestly, I think this pandemic would be over by now.
Yeah.
But the age of misinformation is upon us. And of course, the pandemic had to land right in the middle of all that. And of course, let all the vaccine misinformation keep spreading. God, what a crazy time we live in.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, people don't know what they don't know. Like when you say, oh, you won't understand what it's like to be a parent unless you have a kid. Like you can conceptually understand something. You don't know what it's like to lose a loved one until you've actually said goodbye to your loved one at their bedside or until you've lost someone in an accident. You don't know that pain until you know that pain, Our family knew what it was like to be that sick, to spend that much time in the hospital, to struggle to breathe. So we were able to look at this pandemic differently than most people because we have, we know, and you can't know what you don't know. So I understand
You have
that.
an inside lens.
Yes, we do. Absolutely. But I think, do you think people just can't get it until they can experience it personally, which is why it's like, unless you have someone who died of COVID or unless you watch someone do it.
Yeah, exactly. People don't believe it or take it seriously until it hits them personally or their family personally. Yeah. The same thing with smoking. You know, every smoker, by the way, who smokes knows that smoking is going to kill them or is really, really bad for them, right? Every smoker, they actually know this. There's actually no misinformation about smoking. Every smoker knows that it's bad for them, but they do it anyways.
Why?
Because they enjoy it. Okay. It's addictive, of course. And, you know, it doesn't hit them until someone in their family dies. Yeah. And then usually it's something like, I want to be able to see my children someday grow up. That's usually the only reason people quit smoking. And it was so many other things. Like many people don't realize it or how bad an illness is until it hits them. This is why people oftentimes with healthcare, you know, only get really angry when they have some chronic illness or hospitalization and then get a $20,000, $30,000 hospital bill. It's like now, oh God, health insurance. Now, health insurance has always been horrible, right? But now you finally realize it and pre-existing conditions. Oh, I didn't care about that before until now. And I feel like this lack of empathy is a real serious problem that we can't conceptualize anyone else's pain until we suffer ourselves. And I think it's a selfishness in this world that, you know, it's kind of like the same attitude. Why should I pay for other people's sick kids or pay for other kids to go to school if I don't have kids? It's something about collective society. But in our uber individualistic society that where we live in, it's me, you know, personal freedom. All that is thrown out the window. It's like brainwashing of half of America to that basically nobody else matters other than myself. And that selfishness is part of the reason, in addition to misinformation, of why we're still here.
Well, you know what, you're talking about misinformation. And I used to say at the beginning of the pandemic, I was like, why isn't this on the front of every paper? Like, I know it's gruesome, but I felt like they should have had photographs on the front of the New York Times of the morgue trucks filled with bodies, of the hallways in body bags. I felt like
we should have like a daily instead of a weather report, like a daily local news hospital report. Today in the hospital capacities are completely full. So, you know, just like, hey, drive slowly out there. Hey, maybe be careful out there and don't do something dangerous. But it's one of those out of sight, out of mind things. We need to really hit people.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, if you look at something like the Vietnam War and how the sentiment around the war changed when those images started coming home of all the trauma that was happening there, I feel like that would have been very helpful to America to see the trauma from a first perspective, even if it was ugly and horrible for us to look at. I think it would have clued us in a little bit more. Now, COVID seems to be in some ways changing. And I know BA2 is just decimating China right now. And then it's moved to Europe. And Europe, we're usually about 2 weeks behind Europe. So it's going to come here at a more extended rate. But is it ever going to be that we get to a variant where it makes itself harmless, or we learn to live with it with improved vaccines and antivirals and treatments? Can people look forward to something so they know they're doing this work with an end goal in mind? Or is this just like, you know, sometimes when people feel it's a perpetual problem, they would rather not deal with it. I think that's where we get back to climate change. It's just too big an issue, so I'm going to pretend it's not happening. Can people look forward to something? You're an expert in public health and public policy, so
yeah, this is one of those things in which, you know, first of all, we should not delude ourselves that more mutations eventually will mutate to be a mild form. That's not necessarily true. There's no real evidence of that. And so far, we're in year 3, and each time it's the virus will do its virus thing to basically be more dodgier and be a better pole vaulter against your immune system, right? And earlier you said a bulletproof vest, except each time it will learn to be a little bit more armor piercing in some way. But this is why we have to say, you know what doesn't care about variants? Masks. Do you know what doesn't care about variants? Ventilation. Do you know what doesn't care about variants? Disinfection, like these Corsi boxes or HEPA filters, and all these tests, they don't really care about variants. The only thing that cares about variants is vaccines and some of these drugs like monoclonal antibodies. And so that's why those who try to only say, hey, we got vaccines, we got monoclonal antibodies, if you just rely on vaccine only, which vaccines are great, but if you just focus on vaccine only, it's not going to be enough. What we need to do, I think the new normal, like we have to go to a new normal.
We're can't never just going go back to the old normal. It's never happening.
The world is completely changed. Well, I think what we need more is, look, vaccines require behavioral compliance. Masks require behavioral compliance. We have to transcend beyond politics. What doesn't require behavioral compliance? Ventilation, air disinfection. And this is where one of the things where EPA is trying to push that. Labor Department should do that. CDC should get on board more aggressively with that. Because if you have air disinfection mandates in restaurants and nightclubs and bars, you know what? Most people wouldn't even know. And same with schools. Most schools are not are very poorly ventilated because they're so old. If we put those disinfection or ventilation systems in, which the pandemic funds had available, it's just people misspent them and didn't spend it on this. It's like the third rail. It doesn't care about behavior or politics. It's just in the rafters or in the corner of the room, or it's just the windows. It's apolitical. And if we just focus on that, that's like the third rail of this pandemic that we've been completely ignoring. And we were still basically allowing the virus to go. But there is a way if we focus on ventilation and disinfection.
And that would make it less likely to spread in certain environments. Is that right?
Yes, it would reduce almost all the super spreading. Almost all the super spreading. Think of like choir singing as the Skagit, Washington outbreaks. School outbreaks in the cafeteria oftentimes because, hey, you know what? Kids take off masks and kids shout in the cafeteria. Like you can't ignore that reality.
Nor do you want
that kids
to, because children need to be with each other. This is very essential for their mental health. So put in better ventilation.
I'm for in-person schooling. If you do all this masking plus disinfection, you can have in-person schooling. So, don't let the right say that, masks are anti-kids. No, masks are pro-kids so that kids stay in school, teachers stay in school. And this ventilation will even help even more because obviously kids aren't always perfect maskers. So if we want keep kids in school learning, then we should focus on this. But it's completely being ignored right now. Or just basically just given like paltry support compared to drugs and all these other things. I think there is a way out of it.
Yeah, well, I guess the air purifying system people don't have a strong enough lobby.
No, there's lobbyings for them, but right now we just have to get real. Like obviously vaccines cost a lot of money, to pay for all these vaccines. And the more mutations, we probably need a new generation of vaccines soon. Right. But I don't want to play this whack-a-mole. But you know what doesn't have to play whack-a-mole? These air disinfection kind of things. Ventilation, which is free, by the way. We just need to do them. It's agnostic for your politics. And if we do it all and have these air standards throughout all the buildings, we can transcend the politics of this and still defeat the pandemic. And hopefully we'll come out on the better side.
Oh, I love that. Is there anything else we should be looking out for that's coming on the horizon? New treatments, new policies, new, drugs that might be helping? Anything I should be looking for?
I'm hopeful for the kids vaccine.
Yeah, the under 5 vaccine. Okay.
There's the Moderna under 5 kids vaccine. It works. They're applying for the EUA right now. I think that will be a really good sigh of relief to a lot of parents with kids under 5. We need boosters for kids 5 to 11. They still don't have boosters yet. If we get that boosters, then I think it'll be really, really good because 2 shots with Omicron is just not enough. Omicron is like an armor-piercing bullet. You won't die, but it's not enough. 75% is not enough. And again, with 2 shots For kids, it's only 48%. That's why you definitely need the
Right.
third shot. That's why we need to still have mask and protection, because the vaccines in kids are not entirely available, and there's no boosters yet. So I think those are things I'm looking at.
Those are all doable
course,
things. And they're also things that you can focus on if you're doing another COVID package, putting the money into the air filtration, that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. But I really hope that we have this ventilation, air disinfection, indoor air quality, and of course, N95 masks for all healthcare workers. It's ludicrous that we're in year 3 of an airborne virus and we're still not mandating N95 for all healthcare workers and nursing home workers.
That does
today.
seem bananas.
Anyway,
this is the way.
Anyways.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Eric, for taking the time to join us today. I mean, I know ultimately people want to hear the truth, even if it's not what they want to hear, So I really appreciate you chatting with me and sharing your experiences. And I know it's out of most of our wheelhouses, right? Like, we're not scientists. We look to scientists to help us, and we need experts we can trust when there's so many voices out there that we can't. So I sincerely appreciate you taking this time to talk with me today. Thank you so much for coming.
All right. Stay safe, everyone.
Bye. So that was Dr. Eric Feigl-Ding, epidemiologist and public health expert. It's quite clear that no matter how much we want to be done with COVID, COVID isn't done with us. But we can do what we can, no matter the politics, to protect ourselves and our loved ones by taking all the steps possible to limit the spread. We might all just need to think more like Mandalorians and not like Batman. We wear the mask when we're in public, and no matter how protected we are, we know we're not invincible. We can live our lives pretty well if we keep that in mind. Dr. Feigl-Ding reminds us to reconnect with our empathy for other people and for society at large. Like you said, just because hospitalizations for drunk driving is down, it doesn't mean you should go out and drink and drive. So live your life, but from a place of awareness and protection. We need you healthy to add your voice to this broken world. Thank you to Dr. Feigl-Ding for joining us today, and to you for caring enough about our country to be here. Until next week, PG out. The PoliticsGirl Podcast is written and performed by me, Lee McGowan, in partnership with the Meidas Media Network, and produced and edited by Happy Warrior Entertainment. All rights reserved.